Well, welcome back to Rough Restos. This will be the latest episode on the Turbo Technics V8 Range Rover. More of a how-to video really than a episode as such. I thought, I don't know if there's any videos out there like this, so why not do one? It's a common issue. So today we're going to be playing with the ABS pump, most importantly the accumulator, which on the Classics and the P38 is a known issue. I think they have a lifetime of about 10 years-ish. I think it depends on a lot of things. So replacing it's certainly a good idea, especially when you start to get the brake symptoms, because if you leave it too long and it goes beyond knackered, in turn you'll knack your ABS pump, to which you can, well, you can't buy the classic ones anymore. I think they're all gone. You might be able to buy the P38 ones, but I'm sure most pumps are sort of around the £1,600 mark, which is just stupid. Obviously you can buy a used one, but even then, if you're going to buy a used accumulator, you're probably going to have the same issue, so you still need to replace that anyway. So, as you may notice, this isn't the P38, but the video is going to be based on a P38 pump, because it's been converted in the past. Not a bad shout, because they're more readily available than the classic ones anyway, so that's quite handy. But it's still the same sort of process, and I'll try and explain a few differences there may be between the two. Both are fairly straightforward, or should be. Never done it, we'll find out in a minute. Let's crack on a minute then. Excuse the mess. For those of you who have been watching and keeping update, this is still very much the start of a work in progress on this vehicle. I've only recently acquired it, and I've only managed about 30 miles in it since getting it home before I'm unable to drive it because the accumulator's so buggered. So this here is a typical P38 pump. The classic pump is very similar. I would show you, but my other classics like 10 miles away in a field, so it's no use at all. So that's a typical P38 pump with the accumulator on top. A normal classic has a accumulator down there, which you'll see, which is still on this one. Don't ask me why, it's nothing to do with me, but yeah. So similar sort of process, both screw on and off. That one's more of a pig to get to than the P38 one to sit on top. Excuse the fact this pump isn't mounted, again, nothing to do with me, but I'll solve that one day along with a million other issues on this car. So, common symptoms being your pedal just goes straight to the floor after a couple of presses and you have no brakes, and then you get, oh shit, I almost crashed. That's usually the accumulator. If the pump sort of seems to run on, obviously when you turn ignition on, quite commonly the pump will run on for, I don't know, say 40 seconds-ish, depending on the condition of the accumulator, and that charges up this one here. This has, I'm pretty sure it's 70 bar of nitrogen, and it pressurizes the brakes up to like a 180 bar or something stupid like that. So that should then hold the pressure, so when you press the pedal, that releases a bit of pressure, gives you your power brakes essentially. Now if this runs out of charge rather quickly, you may find your foot goes to the floor and you have no brakes because you've drained the fluid before the pumps had a chance to sort of recuperate the pressure. So quite commonly you'll notice if you may be driving around and you use the brake a couple of times, then suddenly your foot goes to the floor, it gets a bit spongy, and then the pump's running far too often. That's almost a sure sign that your accumulator's knackered. If perhaps your pump's not running at all, then it might well not be your accumulator. It could well be the pressure switch is damaged, it could be the relay, or it could be the pump. If you find you have no pump at all and you've experienced the brake pedal going to the floor issues prior to that, when the pump was still working, the chances are you might have burnt out the pump or the relay because it's been running too much, because the accumulator's been knackered and it can't keep up. I'm only really going to go into detail on the accumulator today, but with the help of the internet, all the other things are fairly simple to diagnose. It's a fairly complicated system, but the actual pump side of things is fairly straightforward, as long as you've got a bit of competency with electrics and mechanical bits and bobs, which hopefully you do have a bit if you play with your brakes. So we want to remove this one. I've got over here a genuine, well, I think you can only buy genuine ones, but by choice you want to buy genuine anyway, because you're kind of playing with your brakes, and it's a 10-year part. There's no point putting on a part that's going to last a couple of years when you might as well put on a 10-year part. So this is a STC 2784, which is for the P38. It's a rather big sort of paperweight looking thing. It weighs quite a bit actually. So you've got one of them. I'll put it safe up there, where it can't go anyway, of course. And then somewhere in your box you should also have a new O-ring, because the old O-ring will be knackered. There we go. Even in a fancy, purple one. posh. So you've got one of them, you must use that, unless you want to have failing brakes again. So it's that. Now, what you need to do first, safety-wise, is depressurise the system. Obviously, if there's 180 bar of pressure stored up in here, when you remove that, it's not going to be fun, and it's not going to look too pretty. The Land Rover sort of way of doing it is to depress the pedal 30 times. Let's just go and have a peek a minute. Now, bearing in mind, if your accumulator is knackered like mine is, you shouldn't have 30 pumps worth of pressure in it. It should be dead in no time at all. But the by the book way is to press the pedal 30 times, and then after that, you should find you should start to lose pressure anyway. So do that. I guess the other way of doing it would be to, if you've got somewhere safe to do it, just unplug the pump, start the vehicle up, maybe drive it back and forth a couple little times gently, and then you'll soon know when your pedal's to the floor and you've got no pressure whatsoever. But pump it 30 times so you lose pressure. It should get quite soft. And then after that, wait 60 seconds, and then pump it a further 4 times, and then that should be safe to use. So what I'll do is I'll come back in a second when I've done that. Well, that's sorted now. So by the book, I should have no pressure in the system. We'll soon find out, but I don't want to risk it. Well, I will be risking it, but chances are if the accumulator is buggered, then there might be some excess fluid sitting in the accumulator because there's excess space with less pressure. So what we'll do is we want to, I've also disconnected the pump, just don't need to, but better safe than sorry on that one. So now we want to remove this unit here. If it was fixed down, it might be easier, but because mine's not, that could be more fun. I've got to try and steady the pump at the same time. Now on the bottom, you'll see, I might be able to see from here, there's a 22mm nut on the accumulator. If not, you can use a sort of oil filter wrench or similar on this ball. It's absolutely fine. Let's get this cracked off and see what happens. Well, hopefully you can see something there. We want to get some blue roll. Now I'm not too precious because the whole engine's got to come out. I've got to repaint the bay and do it anyway, but obviously on a nicer vehicle you do not want to get brake fluid over any paintwork, or if you do, you want to get it off quick. So it's always handy to have a can of brake cleaner, even if it is that rubbish stuff there, and blue roll around just to save your ass on that one. We'll kind of pile it under here for a minute, a bit like that, and have some ready to go just in case. Now, technically it should be not pressurised. Obviously, it'd be better if you're wearing safety specs and all that kind of PPE. Brake fluid is dangerous stuff, but yeah. So I'm going to try and hold this bit and see if it will crack off. It could be super tough, it could be an absolute nightmare. Well, it's not on there weak anyway. Oh, not at all. Oh, I might have to change tactics in a minute then. Well, based on this, I would strongly recommend putting it in the vise and maybe doing it properly if yours is this tight. But in my case, I don't care at the moment, so if in doubt, we'll get the big hammer out. And we'll just give it a bit of a beat. My wings need a lot of attention anyway, so they'll be fine. Ah, here we go. Now she's cracked off. No fluid leaking out yet. No pressure flying out. Not gone through the roof yet. Oh, there we go. Spoke too soon. So there's clearly some fluid and pressure in there. So again, just be careful. Yeah, it's quite a lot of brake fluid in there. I think mine was knackered. Right, no pressure, so get rid of this. There's the old one off. O-ring sits around there. Actually, not in too bad a nick really, but now, obviously you do not want any dirt going down in to your ABS pump. That wouldn't be great. You need to make sure the mating surface for the new accumulator and the O-ring is clean and tidy as well. So that's the new one. Now technically you shouldn't have to bleed this because there isn't much, there's only about how much air to go in. The diaphragm inside, which I can see, I'm pretty sure I can see it, only goes, well, will be fully inflated at the moment because there's nothing to force it back on itself. So that basically comes up the hole. So there's no real room in there to displace any fluid as it is anyway for the moment. So we'll pop the new fancy O-ring on. Make sure he's not tangled. Just like that. If you can see that, I'm not sure. And then we'll pop him back on. No dirt, nothing. Alright, now this needs to be tightened, but not over tightened to the point where it tears up your O-ring. Else you're going to be back to square one again and having to replace that. So, do a bit with hand there. I'll give him a gentle nip up the spanner. No, on the spanner. Well, that's annoying. They appear to have changed the design. You can't fit a big spanner on this new type. Right, well, that's nipped up. Clean off all the excess brake fluid. If it was for the car you cared about, obviously you'd want to be keeping on top of that as it was coming out. But I really don't have to worry at the moment, so. Well, that's the accumulator popped on in my dodgy ABS pump. Let's plug it back in. Plug the sensor back in. New accumulator on. Very similar process with the Classic, but instead you'll be removing it down the bottom there. And you have actually got a little bleed nipple if you want to bleed that afterwards. I did do it on my other Classic when I had to play with the ABS pump to bleed it through. It's not a bad idea. Either gravity pressure bleeder, similar sort of process that you would do your brakes. Hook a bit of hose on there into a bottle. What I did is I briefly connected the pump last time for like a split second or so just to pump a bit through and pump the air out, and then locked it off again. Something similar to that, but because no doubt when you do it the other way around you'll bleed a bit of air out the lines, unlike the P38 pump where you have no lines to lose any fluid from. So now the pump should kick in. It should go off in about 40 seconds-ish, apparently. So maybe we'll give it a quick time, actually, just to give us a rough idea if we know it's working. And obviously, it shouldn't leak, so we'll best triple check that a million times. And then we'll check the brakes somewhere where it's safe to check the brakes, and I'm not going to go ploughing through a hedge or another car. No leaks. Triple check. All good. Perfect. Right, well I think it's time for a little test and see how it goes. And as I typically forgot to mention, of course if you're going to play your brakes and let fluid bleed out, you're going to need to replace what comes out again. So make sure to check your levels once you've done this. Mine needs a slight top up, nothing massive, but enough. So let's give the old go a go. That's a good start for once we haven't got the brake warning light on, which normally indicates the pressure fault. I've got a brake pedal, that's a good start. Oh wow, yes. Ah yes, I got brakes. Ideal. And for one final check, now I've gone back and forth a few times and used the brakes and put my foot on the pedal hard. We'll check for any leaks. No, she's dry as a bone. fluid's still good, perfect level, so I'm happy. I think that wraps that up. Quite an easy fix. Much quicker if you're not trying to record it and work out what you're doing as you're going. But yeah, you know. If you happen to enjoy the video, maybe it's useful to you, maybe it wasn't, maybe I've cocked something right up here and you want to tell me about it, or maybe you just want to say you liked it. Why not drop a comment? Like the video, subscribe obviously for more, because there is more. In case you also have an ABS light on the dash, my previous video, which will be in the end screen in a few seconds time, tells you how to read your codes and reset the codes without any real cost compared to the mega money for the proper Land Rover computer or take to the dealership. So it goes through that, and there will be plenty more videos coming up in the future. They're more from the sort of amateur point of view, because I am new to Range Rovers and Land Rovers. I've got plenty of other projects which I'm quite experienced in. Not a mechanic by trade, but the Range Rover's a new one, so I thought, why not just record my learning experience of it and see if I can help anyone else whilst probably failing myself. So yeah, hopefully I'll see you next time, or you'll see me and I won't actually see you, but yeah, same thing. And yeah, I've been Jordan. Bye.